Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, in this episode I show you how to create a super HDR sort of RAW file and retouch it in Lightroom to get all the dynamic range of your photo. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs and welcome to my photography, Lightroom and Photoshop tips. Episode 99. My name is Serge Ramelli. I'm a French photographer living in Paris, France. In last week's episode I showed you how to create a time-lapse, a sunset time-lapse using a free plugin called Lightroom Time-Lapse, which is beautiful. Check it out if you're into time-lapse. This week I'm going to show you an amazing trick on how you can take 3 exposures, make it into a super HDR file, and do all the tone mapping, the retouching in Lightroom and Lightroom only. But before, I just want to tell you that a new course from Jean-Michel Bertz is out, The Heart of Black and White Portraits. At the end of this video, you will see a full presentation of this new training course by this amazing black and white artist. But first, to the tutorial. Here it is, HDR tone mapping just using Lightroom. Alright guys, I'm very excited about this tutorial. You know that one of the biggest problems we have today with cameras is, even though they are pretty amazing, sometimes the lack of dynamic when you have an exceptional light situation. And mesdames et messieurs, this is an exceptional light situation. This was a beautiful sunset in Paris. So I decided to do a bracket shot. That's a normal exposure, that's the underexposure, and that's the overexposure. Now, even the underexposure where you can really see the sunset does not give it justice. The sunset was so strong and so amazing that night that, it just had so much more colors than that, There is basically 3 ways that I deal with that. The first way is, it's doing an HDR, just a regular HDR with Photomatix or HDRFX Pro. And you can see here a link of a tutorial where I show this. Or digital blending, which is pretty cool, and you can see another link here showing that. Now, the thing is, there is a third way, and that third way was invented by Adobe, and it was implemented in, if I remember well, in Lightroom 4.3, and now it's even, since Photoshop CC, it's implemented in Adobe Camera Raw. And that is, the idea is to create an HDR 32-bit file that will be retouched in Lightroom. What does that mean? Is that we're going to take these 3 exposures and we're going to make them into like a super TIFF file, like let's say a super RAW file with everything. You've got all the data of the sky, of the shadows from the the bright photo, and you've got also all the details in the bright light in the underexposed photo, and you got all the midtones in the normal exposure. So how does it work? How do you do it, and why? Well, here it is. First thing first, I have a rule about sunset is that I put the white balance on shade, and then I just add a bit of magenta. That's just how I rock, and a bit of yellow sometimes. So that's what I'm going to do on this one. I'm going to boost slightly the exposure because if you look at it, the normal exposure was a bit too low. It was a bit too dark. But, I like to make dark photos on sunset. So anyways, I'm just going to boost the exposure, and I'm going to make a gradient filter just for the top part here and lower the exposure just so we get more details. Okay? And the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the noise reduction, and I'm just going to take out like 10 of noise and put a bit like 80 of sharpening. So we have, we took some noise out. And so that's all I did. It's sort of a basic retouching before creating that super file. Now, I'm going to take all 3 photos. I'm going to click on Sync, make sure Check All is on, and Synchronize. And what that's going to do is, it's just going to, one thing I forgot, very important. I forgot to enable profile correction, remove chromatic aberration, and sync again. Yeah, you want that. So all I'm doing is, taking care of chromatic aberration, noise, and just did a little exposure issue, darkening a bit the sky and, boosting a bit the exposure. That's all. So now if you look at the underexposed photo, it's in the same white balance, very warm, and same thing for the overexposed photo. Now, I right click, and this is the trick. Edit, merge to HDR Pro in Photoshop, and that's going to open Photoshop in a special mode. It's going to take all 3 exposure, and it's going to make what they call an HDR for high dynamic range 32-bit file. Just to make it clear, it's so, imagine like as a super raw file with all the data. And it's actually very easy to do. You have nothing to do. You just let the software do it. The only settings you have is just make sure that mode is on 32-bit, because if it's on 16-bit, then you get all this, and this is what we call the tone mapping. Tone mapping, what it is basically distributing the values. You're saying, okay, I want the sky to be brighter, I want the shadows to be darker. You can do that here. But I find that these settings are very confusing and not very precise. I find that the one in Lightroom are much precise and give a much more natural result. So that is why I'm going to the 32-bit. Now for now it looks very weird. You have the option to remove ghost. Now check it out. You see here you have the normal and well, it's actually making a mistake. This is the overexposed, this is the normal, and this is the underexposed. If you click remove ghost, which is the only option you have, what it's going to do is basically, you see it's making this as a green. It's gonna take one of the photos which has a fast shutter speed, and it's gonna take the data from that. But I don't want that because the water is gonna get more crispy, and so you have to check it. On some photo it's better to remove the ghost, and some it's not. On this one it was better to not put the remove ghost. And also all it was removing ghost is trying to find out of the 3 photo you took which one doesn't have any ghost, which one is fast enough so that people are like sharp in it, they are not blurry, because the overexposed photo usually has a longer shutter speed, and so people are blurry in it. Anyways, we don't have much people, and people were not moving so much. It's not the point here. You have the possibility to complete toning in Adobe Camera Raw, which you can do if you only have Photoshop and not Lightroom, and then you just can follow the tutorial from now on. But I don't recommend to do that because I find Camera Raw so hard to use compared to Lightroom. I've been using both for years, and just Lightroom is more organic. It's so much easier. So I don't check that, and I just click OK. So I did nothing. All I did was put 32-bit on, and it's going to create that sort of super raw file, super HDR file with all kind of hidden information. And some people are allergic to HDR, and that's a good way to, if you don't like the HDR look, that's a good way to do, because all you're resolving as a problem is just adding more information in your highlights and your shadows. That's it, without doing any photomatics or HDR look. All right, then I'm going to go File. I'm going to go Close. I'm going to save it, and it's going to re-import it in Lightroom. So I go back to Lightroom, and here it is. This is it. So now I've got a sort of a super raw file, and let me take this out, and let's retouch it now. So now we're just at the starting point. We've got the Superman raw file. So I'm going to do my usual workflow. I'm going to open the shadows, and I'm going to bring on the highlights. But see, if I do the same thing here, this is the regular file. If I bring down the highlights completely, you will see on this file that there is more detail. I'll show you this at the end. You will see. So, and also a less noise. So highlights, shadows. I'm going to do my white point holding the Alt key and going to the right until I see some stuff, some burn 100% pixel, which is the red, and then I stop. And I'm going to go into the blacks, make this a bit darker. That's kind of cool. I'm going to boost the overall exposure. And then this sky was amazing. It was one of the nicest sunsets I've seen in Paris. I've seen like maybe 5 like that in 8 years that I've been a photographer. I mean, it was so dense. It was so saturated. This does not give it justice, not a second. So we're going to try to do that. So for this, I'm going to go into the filters, and I'm just going to make a filter here, a gradient filter. I'm going to reset everything by pressing the Alt key. The effect becomes reset. I click on reset. I'm going to lower the exposure, and I'm going to add some yellow and red because it was really warm. It was a lot warmer than what you can see on the photo. So that's kind of cool. Now I have a little trick, maybe not that dark. I have a little trick. Once I do the double processing of the sky, and that is I add one more gradient filter just for the top. So I'm going to click Alt, reset, making this a bit darker, and then I'm going to add some blue. And I'm going to add some green too, because if you add some green, it's going to take any warm out of it. The whole idea is to Okay, maybe I'm gonna make this a bit more straight. The whole idea is to make like a vignette effect, and in the same time to bring some blues, because then you got a gradient from blue to warm, and what it does is that it just puts more attention on the warm. Check it out. Before my 2ND graded filter, after, we've added a very amazing quality. Oh, one little thing I didn't talk about, the composition of this photo is kind of cool. And this is a trick you can do. I call this the from where did you shoot composition. The whole idea is you've got a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And, I actually show where I shot this photo. So, I don't know, it gives dimension to your photo. You have this as a foreground, and it's pretty hard to balance it, so that this is not too present, which is a bit the case. So, I'm going to go into the, the crop tool. I'm sorry, I'm losing my language. I'm going to rotate this to make sure Notre Dame, which is the star of this photo, is straight up. And I'm just going to take a bit out here and big out here, because you know how I like the panos. I like the panos. Okay, so now I'm ready to do a couple of local adjustments. Maybe just to add a bit of clarity and a bit of vibrance and a bit of saturation to make it crazy. No, I think saturation not. Maybe just a little bit. I mean, the sky was really like that. It was so yellow, I was like, I couldn't believe it. You've seen that. You've seen these sunsets. They don't come very often, at least in Europe. I don't see them very often. Okay, so now, and there was also like some sunspots there, which for some reason got lost. So let's put them back on. A radial filter. I'm going to make a radial filter, make sure that invert mask so that the exposure, which was high here, is only up. I'm going to add some yellow and some red, because that's how it was. It was like pretty warm spots. Make sure feathering is all the way. And there was one spot here. I'm going to duplicate and make another spot here. Duplicate and make another spot here. Make this one smaller. Duplicate. And one on Notre Dame, which is a star of this photo. Notre Dame, a beautiful church in Paris. One of the most known church. Oh, you know what? Let's continue. I just want to add some shading here, but here I'm going to make it less warm. Okay, I like that. I'm going to duplicate and make this a bit bigger. I love to use this radial filter. It really is cool for that. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy. I'm starting to be happy. And you know what? I think I'm going to go and do, I'm just going to do a little post-crop vignetting to darken everything, to focus in the middle. And then I'm just going to brighten up a little bit the photo. Okay, and maybe add a bit of contrast, very little. I mean, this is the emotion that I had when I saw the photo. Now check this out. If I copy with Command-Shift-EC or Control-Shift-C on Windows, if I copy all I've done here, okay, and then I go here on my original raw file, and I do Command-V to copy all the, Command-Shift-V to copy all I've done. Well, first I get a very blue photo. It's not the same white balance. So, I could adjust it, make it warmer. Try to mimic, the fitting of the other one. Okay, like make it a lot warmer. But that's not the problem. Oops, let me show you something. I think I made this one a bit too warm. There was a lag, and I thought it did it, and it did not do it. Now, check this out. I'm going to take these two photos and press C so that we can compare it. So on your right, you have this new technology, which is the 32-bit, huge file. Let me make this big. I'm going to click on all these windows. All right. And on the left, you've got the regular raw file. Now, check this out. If I zoom in, see how this is all noisy, completely noisy and basically not usable. Look at the noise here. Look how it's perfect here. Why? Because this is using 3 images as a dynamic range. Look at the detail of the sunset. You can see every detail of the sunset in the sky. Look at the details here. It's almost burned. There's not so much details. And here it's so noisy. This photo is not usable. Of course, I could retouch the normal photo, and get a decent result. But with this one, I get a much more dramatic, a much more clean result, because I don't get the photomatics looks, I don't get the HDR look. I just have a super raw file with all the information. And it doesn't work on every photo. If you've got too much stuff moving, it's not going to work. It's good to have pretty fast shutter speed. If you look at it, I press I. This one was at 1/25 of a second for the normal exposure, 1/100th of a second, so very fast for the low exposure, and the longest exposure was the overexposure at 1.6. But anyways, so all the data is there. So basically the idea is you're doing the tone mapping yourself in Lightroom instead of letting Photomatix or HDRFX Pro or HDR Photoshop doing it. A pretty crazy trick for a pretty crazy photo. So I'm giving you for free all these 3 raw files. It's totally free. All you have to do is subscribe to my newsletter so you can give it a try and see for yourself. You will be amazed. You will be amazed. Voila, let's go back to the studio. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Finally, my wishes, my prayer has been heard. And Jean-Michel Bertz accepted to do one more tutorial with me, the Art of Black and White Portraits. Now, Jean-Michel is an international renowned photographer and actually one of the best sellers of fine art prints in France and in the world. His work is shown in galleries in New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, you name it. He also made a series of books called The Lights of Paris, The Lights of London, The Lights of Tokyo, The Lights of Jerusalem, which is his latest book. And these books are also bestsellers all over the world. I have been begging Jean-Michel to show to the world his black and white techniques, and he accepted a few months back, and we did 2 courses together, the Art of Black and White 1 and the Art of Black and White 2. Now, after a lot of people requested, we're going to do the Art of Black and White Portraits. The whole idea was to show how Jean-Michel makes his portrait without using any studio technique, just regular Windows light or outside light. The first project, and I'm going to show you all the behind of the scene, the live videos, is his neighbor in Normandy, taken in his workspace. He works the wood, and that's the final result. The next photo we're going to be doing is a beautiful black ballet dancer, just taken against a very neutral black background with just one window light, and that's the final result. The next one is going to be a high-key beauty shot, and just with a reflector, like a $30 reflector and outside light, that's the final result. Last but not least, Jean-Michel did an impossible mission. He managed to get a good portrait of me. So this is the behind the scene, and this is the final result. And I thought it was impossible, and he made it. So it's over 3 hours long. I learned tons of stuff, even so I've been training on Photoshop for many years. So many tricks, and you don't even need a recent version of Photoshop. I mean, it works from Photoshop 7 on. Jean-Michel is not a Photoshop expert. He's a photographer, and I love his technique. So I hope you check it out. Jean-Michel Bertz, Art of Black and White Portraits. Alright guys, I hope you liked the tutorial. I hope you liked the Jean-Michel Bertz presentation. It's an amazing training, one of the best I've ever done. I hope you do buy it and check it out. It helps support me to do all the free stuff too. And download the raw files that I've provided for free and give a try to this trick on HDR. You will love it. It brings amazing results. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Au revoir.